What's up everybody and welcome to the video which says should matchup tier charts return. And for those of you who do not know, a matchup tier chart is basically a giant matchup chart comprised of every single matchup in the game and then ranked orderly fashion, something like what a tier list would be. So for example, you would have the top characters would be all the way up with the highest amount of points would be at the top, and then the points when they lessen would create other subgroups of tiers, and then it would go all the way to the bottom depending on how bad the characters are in the game. See right here, Shiva unfortunately is at 85 points overall score, which is less than half of the points that the top tiers have in the game. So this game, right off the bat, you can tell was not very balanced at all. And this tier chart was recently updated because it wasn't as good as the old one was. There was a lot of inconsistencies and there wasn't much accuracy. Cabal, for example, had a few of his 5/5s changed to 6/4s. So Cabal, only character in the game, well, one of the only two characters in the game that has no 5/5s in the game. Whereas Shiva is the polar opposite of that. She also has no 5/5s, but that's because she has everything is basically matchup for her. Now you're probably wondering, well, how was this tier chart created? Back in MK9, we used to have something called a character council, where anyone who mained a character or anyone who had very good knowledge on a character would be part of the council if they opted to go in, and they would be part of a giant PM group where everybody would discuss matchups and, you know, talk about what character that character lost to, what characters the character beat, and it was just an ongoing thing. And it extended all the way up to Injustice 1. I know Injustice 1 had character councils also. I'm not sure if Injustice 1 ever had a character tier chart. I tried looking for one, but I couldn't find one. And in MKX, the whole character council concepts and tier charts kind of went out the window, and that's why we don't have them anymore. But this video is for if you guys want to see this kind of stuff return. You know, it'd be cool if MKX had a fully fleshed out character tier chart for every variation in character in the game, and it'd be cool if Injustice 2 has, you know, a tier chart created and fleshed out a year or two from now that would go through every character and pretty much give you a taste of what the balance would look like. Because when you look at a tier chart for a game, it gives you a bit of understanding of how the game was, you know, who were the top tiers, who was on the weaker side of the game, where did characters stand up specifically, how were matchups like. Now granted, these are never going to be fully complete, accurate, 100% spot on. There's going to always be a few debatable matchups here and there, you know, some 5/5s that could be argued to be a character slight advantage or disadvantage, some matchups that could be, you know, changed differently in the future if the game plays out differently. But for the most part, I'd say this tier chart that we have right here for MK9 is probably the most accurate tier chart we have for any of our games, and it's cool to look at. And I know some of you probably want to see the full tier chart because my camera's in the way, so for a second, I'm going to disable my camera so you guys can take a look at the full chart from top to bottom and, you know, take a screenshot, whatever if you need. Okay, so getting very briefly into this tier chart, just zoom it up a bit. You can see at the top, there's an S tier, and that's basically, you know, in the group 200 points to the 190s, and these characters have the best matchup charts in the entire game. You can see here Kenshi only has what, one losing matchup to Cabal, and then pretty much dominates a large portion of the cast very badly. He even has a 9-1 right here against Jade, which is one of the two worst matchups in the entire game. There was only two 9-1 matchups in this game, if I remember correctly. And, you know, right, he's considered number 1 in this tier chart, but, you know, everyone knows Cabal's the best in the game because Cabal doesn't have any losing matchups in the game. He's obviously best tournament character. I mean, yeah, Cabal may not body Reptile as bad as Sonya does, and he may not 9-1 Jade as bad as, you know, Kenshi does and all these other, and these two characters above him. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's worse than them. That just means these characters overall, if you tally up all their points and how they do against the whole cast, these characters are just up by a point or two, which, whatever, you know. On the tier list, Cabal would be considered number 1. But on the tier chart, it's different because it factors in every single point for a character. And then after Cabal, you have Cyrax, you know, again, another very powerful character. And then going into the A tier group, you can see it starts at the bottom of 180. I guess Cage is an exception here because he's just 181. So it'd be better to group him in with the A instead of the S. So it starts with Cage and then ends right before it gets to the bottom of 160. And in here we have Cage, Kung Lao, Smoke, Freddy, Jax, Katana, Scarlet, and that is the A tier. And then it goes into the B tier, and then the C tier, and you can see as the points, characters pretty much have around the same point tier group. And then it gets all the way to the bottom, where Shiva is in her own tier, F, sadly, because she's nowhere near the two other worst characters in the game, Jade and Kano, because she's further than them by about 15 points or so, which is pretty bad. This is what a tier chart looks like, and I think it would be cool if we can get one of these for Injustice 2, you know. Maybe bring back character councils on TYM. I guess you could do that with Discords nowadays. Just have, you know, players that use a character create a pretty accurate matchup chart for the time being. Have it constantly being discussed, talked about. Have player representatives send their charts out. Have, you know, because, you know, sometimes there's going to be a list where matchups kind of interfere with each other. Like, let's say, for example, Batman players think this one matchup is losing for them, but then the other side of the character for their matchup chart thinks they lose to Batman. Then you could probably maybe see that as being a possible 5-5 if that's the case, where both communities feel that their character loses to one another. You know, stuff like that, just to compromise. But yeah, hopefully this video gets some talk of, you know, a possible giant matchup chart being made for Injustice 2 in the future.